And then when I have like a certain experience, I'm like, oh my God, this is just, I'm glad I have the experience to draw from now. And then sometimes I'll see other people talk about things, and then I notice, and I cringe too, and I try to be so careful when I talk about things I don't have experience with, because when I see people talk about things that I've had firsthand experience with, and it's obvious that they don't have firsthand experience with it, like, oh my God, this guy is so wrong in ways he doesn't even realize. And anybody that knows how fucking wrong this person is. Holy yikes.
Right, so what's the idea? The idea is, you've never had my relationship. You've never had my experiences. You can't give me advice. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that highlights a point, at least of how I approach life, is I think it's iterative, right? Like you rebuild, and you go and you reevaluate it. At some point, something causes that, maybe another perspective, or maybe a problem in your life, or an argument with your significant other or something, and you go, all right, well, I gotta build the next layer, and I gotta build the next layer better than the previous layer, because I wasn't ready 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 10 years ago to have heard it that way. And even if I had told myself the perfect knowledge of what I needed to do in that scenario, it wouldn't have mattered.
Oh, okay, I hate that you just said that. Something that I complain about so much on stream.
Tell me.
If I had a time machine and I could go back 15 years and I knew it, I was 16-year-old Stephen Manel, and 32-year-old Stephen Manel came back from the future and was like, listen, dude, I'm about to tell you shit that's gonna put you so far ahead of where you're gonna be, okay? Listen up. 16-year-old me would think, this motherfucker's a sellout. He doesn't know shit. I don't even care if he's me from the future. I know that he's fucking wrong. Fuck this guy. This guy doesn't know what's up. I have it all figured out. Even if I knew it was me from the future, I wouldn't fucking believe me coming back. And knowing that...
So why do you hate that I said that? Because I just said that.
I hate that it's true. It's so frustrating.
Oh, I see.
It's horrible. It's a horrible feeling because it's so true. Like, no matter what the fuck I would say to myself at 15 or 16, I would never fucking listen.
Well, yeah, that's why they say youth is wasted on the young. That's, yeah, they say that. That's a common expression. It's why you have to try to become wise as quickly as possible, and why reading books is important, because you want to have at least some youth while you're still young. You want to have some wisdom while you're still young, at least a little bit.
Zero chance. Like, I would have to put myself through the experiences to actually gain that firsthand knowledge, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, you know what, sure, 100%.
That's just called bullheadedness, right? If you're not smart enough to listen to the experiences of other people, then you're going to have a bad time. Like, if you're like, oh no, only what I personally experience is relevant, and everything else is garbage. It's like, no, when you read a book, you need to read the classics, the great works, to truly understand, like, humanity, right? The great works of fiction and non-fiction. But most honestly, I would say reading fiction is probably better, right? Like, read the great books of fiction, and you'll understand human nature, and you'll become wise beyond your years quickly, right? So read Lord of the Rings, even though it's hard. Read Moby Dick. Read War and Peace. Read Anna Karenina. Read, 1,000 and what is it called? 1,001 Years of Solitude. No, 1,000 Years of Solitude. Or is it 100 Years? Man, I don't remember the exact title. By Marquez, Gabriela Garcia Marquez, the guy from South America. Read. You gotta read, because that's how you get experience that is not your own quickly. And actually, I've heard this expression, and I think it's relevant. The expression is this: the first 3 or 4 grades are about learning to read. The next years are about using reading to learn. Hello and welcome to heliosblog. My name is Helios, here for another reaction video. If you're new to the channel, liking the content, hit that sub, hit all for notifications. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon with exclusive content. Patreon.com/theheliosblog. Newly revamped, posting weekly content. Just go there and subscribe. Patreon.com/theheliosblog. You could also drop me a donation. Link is in the description. Shout out to Tom M, who dropped me a donation. Really appreciate it. Back to the video.
Yeah, and without being a dick too, I mean, if part of the intent of your stream is essentially to, by having these experiences, discussing these things, is to reach an audience, you run the same issue. But half the audience half the audience will interpret this in some way that's like maybe related to what you want, and some won't interpret it at all, and some will push back super hard on it, and maybe you move people towards it, but you can't like skip, you might get A to D, but you're trying to go A to F or something, right? And you can't skip the midpoints always, or the points in between. So definitely extremely frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
But I agree. Like, even if it was me, like, even if it was fucking time travel and me, I'd be like, nah, alternate future.
Yeah, he must have taken a wrong step somewhere. I'm not going to fuck up like that guy did. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be in a better shape for sure. I had a kind of thought, I think I watched part of that consent conversation you had. How the fuck by the way, do you do like a 16-person like group call? That looks atrocious.
I don't. Prime Case just does it that way. I don't know why he does it, but...
God, like you can't get any depth of like.
Yeah, there is.
Don't have the time.
I don't know why. I'm not sure, but yeah. Usually I do the smaller panel stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, but there was one guy in there, and he was I don't know his stream. I don't know who he was, but he was talking about consent. And he was talking about essentially, he's like, I read body language. I read body language perfectly, and like he's like, and he kept justify. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, the universal something or whatever his name. Yeah.
I thought maybe another way to kind of think about these things might be looking at outcomes too, right? Which is the cost of erring on the side of caution there is pretty low, of like asking for additional, like checking in repeatedly for consent and that people are enjoying themselves and that this is what they want to do. And the cost of not checking in at all is extremely high.
Sure.
Okay. So in 2023, there are two kinds of guys. There are alphas and betas, right? There's highly successful men that other women want to be with and other men want to be. And there's beta males who are the losers, basically. Not losers in life. I'm saying losers in women's eyes. Women don't want any attention from losers. Zero. So they've created this consent thing because it allows them to reject betas easier. Any man that asks for consent multiple times is clearly extremely insecure and unable to read body language, because women don't communicate overtly, they communicate covertly. You can tell by what they're doing, what they're saying. At least they expect you to know that and to get that. And if you don't get that and you communicate that by literally asking for consent, by communicating overtly, it means you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you're a beta male. And if you're a beta male, of course she's going to say no. Because she knows that you're not with it. She knows that you're too stupid to understand how it actually works. You don't get it. So you're a beta.
So when you make an error assessment, like whenever you're doing this, right? Whenever you're like, we hear talk about p-values. P-values are essentially a agreed upon amount of error that you're willing to tolerate at that. And those p-values change, right? Like if you're doing a medical study and the downside of this is someone might die, you're going to change that evaluation than you might in another kind of statistic analysis, right? There's a cost associated with choosing any particular value at which you ascertain this. And I felt like he kind of just really missed it. And not that we have to harp on it for long, but like talking about the consent stuff, it's like the cost of assessing that further is so low compared to the harm that potentially comes out of it by not doing that it's almost an argument for that alone.
I agree with you, but that is like a very is it pathos way of looking at things. Logically it's true, but the problem is the implication there is that you're otherwise implying that it's possible that I did things in the past that some people would consider like rape or sexual assault or like violating someone's boundaries. And that's like, I think that because we centralize so much, the idea that you did something that was bad at one point makes you a bad person. I think that people are really unwilling to engage with that as an argument. I agree with you logically. Like if I was just having like in a vacuum, or if it was a one-on-one conversation, I could address it more. But like, because all the other person is going to hear is, don't you think you should err on the safe side so you don't accidentally rape someone like you already have? Right. I think that's what the person is going to hear in the moment. So like, well, no, of course not. What do you mean I don't need to do this? Because for them to admit that it would be a good idea would be to admit that perhaps they've made a grave error in the past,
Yeah, although sometimes even poking people a little bit, like they might not in the moment be able to process that or figure that out. And no judgment of any way that I don't know what the fuck I would have said there. I wasn't saying I could do it better or anything like that. Just like in the sense of engaging with the idea of this, right? Like in some sense.
By the way, notice how quickly the guy backpedals when Destiny pushes back on him. He's afraid of confrontation, which means he has rarely had confrontation, which means he's either physically weak, mentally weak, or both. I'm afraid that's what that says. Again, let me quote a philosopher. I don't remember if it was Plato or Aristotle that said it, but it was one of the famous Greek philosophers. He said, "It's a terrible tragedy if a man goes through his life and never understands what his body is capable of." And I agree. And that adage applies here very well, because the guy clearly doesn't understand, right? Like, because if he did, then he wouldn't be so afraid of a person saying no, because he wouldn't be afraid of the potential violence that comes with disagreeing with someone. You see what I'm saying?
It's like, even that, like I can think back in my life using my own examples here for this, right? Where parts of my behavior in the past have been like, that was like, in retrospect, that kind of was shitty. Like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So when I change how, you know, the next iteration, again, it's iterative, right? Like, I make mistakes. I know I make fucking mistakes. I'm finite. I'm human. I'm okay with making mistakes as long as I try to minimize them and I actually learn from that, right? So like,
I don't know if a lot of people feel that way. I wish that was the case, but I feel like a lot of people have a really hard time. I have a big hard time like admitting prior mistakes like that, because anytime we accept anything bad about ourselves, like, unless you're really, really far removed from it. And then I think that we're in like a public area where we tend to like destroy people for making past mistakes as well. Which is really shitty. I don't know how much of that podcast you listen to, but like, I would say that in my streaming career in the past, like totally publicly, like I completely and totally like sexually assaulted a girl on stream before for like fucking 5 minutes or whatever. I got super fucking drunk and was like grabbing her fucking breast the entire time. And at the time I figured like, oh, well, you know, we're gonna fuck anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, she's chill or whatever. Like, I'm drunk. It doesn't matter. Like, at the time I'm thinking like, you know, oh, it's not a big deal. But like, looking back, I'm like, okay, wait, this is like really, really, really reprehensible behavior. And
Yeah. People acting like people, right? It's so bad, you know, like, I tried to have bedroom fun with a girl that was interested in me. Ooh, what a bad guy I am. Like, no, that's not being a bad guy, Destiny. Like, it's kind of stupid for you to be drunk while doing it, because again, if you and the girl are drunk, then she can claim that you, you know, A-worded her or whatever, or R-worded her, but, yeah. This is why I don't recommend that you use substances when you're with girls. And if you want to seduce girls or whatever, I recommend that you don't do it in those environments where it's common, because she could turn around and blame it on XYZ, and you'll get, you know, hugely negative consequences. You want to avoid the problems as opposed to making it more likely for those problems to hurt you. Okay, anyway. Peak hypergamy. Here's an article by Rolo Tomasi. Commented, divided line came with such a strong take, I had to riff on it. And this is on Our Sisters Keepers, but this is a comment by a commenter, okay? Let's see. Hypergamy is a given, and it's not going anywhere. But even if women's bedroom fun is biologically rooted, their rationalization for it isn't possible without a compliant culture. So long as women are the damsels, the victims who are put upon by the cruel and all-powerful patriarchy, so long as men are perceived to be powerful and free in a way that they're clearly not, nor have ever been, open hypergamy is possible. After all, any guy who points it out or complains about it is branded an embittered loser, an M-word, a creep, and so on. But I wonder to what degree this will change as RP awareness spreads and penetrates the mainstream. I mean, how long do we think that men will go on smiling and nodding when it's increasingly the case that more and more of us can see what BS all of this is? What it makes me think of is Alana Masi's Dickonomies article. If you hadn't already read it, she goes on and on about how male attention is abundant and cheap, proving that women are well aware of what men who bother with online dating realize from the start. She recognizes the extreme degree of power this gives her before hamstering it away with this. Some will read my gleeful rejections on the many faces I encounter on Tinder as evidence of a disturbing uptick in malevolent, anti-male sentiments among single straight women. It is not. It's evidence of us arriving nearer to gender re-equilibrium, where men can no longer happily judge the clear and abundant photos and carefully crafted profiles of women, but become incensed when they take the opportunity to do the same. How many times have you seen this? All venality, cruelty, selfishness, indifference is justified, of course, because men have it so good, women have it so bad. So she can write something like this, and the sisterhood will nod their heads and no doubt be able to ignore doubt or second thoughts in regards to their atrocious, destructive, and cruel treatment of the opposite gender. Women like people who rationalize generally, tend to think in bogus bumper sticker one-liners because they provide excuses not to think for yourself. And men, after all, just saunter about in the torture dungeon of a society free and powerful and pluck women from the trees before discarding them. So naturally, why should she consider their complexity as human beings or ever recognize what a rotten or horrible human being she is? They're free to retaliate against men for women's imaginary oppression. How long will they be able to keep employing these rationalizations and getting away with it in the public dialogue? It has already begun to change. I've watched it happen over the last year. You see more and more disclaimers in articles which appeal to the you go girl crowd. It really does seem as if there's a growing awareness that they're all full of crap, or at the very least, that maybe there are moral complexities and obligations that come with female social power, to the degree that they're even willing to recognize that power. Hypergamy isn't going anywhere, but since men increasingly are comparing notes now and voicing their criticisms of women's BS, at least online, maybe it really isn't the case that women are going to be able to continue this BS with public sanction. Is this wishful thinking? I've made the case in several other blog comments and forum threads, but it's getting almost too easy to point out women's overt embrace of open hypergamy. There was a time, only 4 short years ago, that I would be run up the flagpole for publishing my observations on the ins and outs of women's bedroom fund strategy. Women in the blogosphere hated the fact that I was exposing their game. They didn't like the idea that I was informing men about the plan women had for them or the part they played, and by informing them, it represented a fundamental threat to their long-term success and essentially to their long-term security. If you're feeling nostalgic, you can skim through the comments of posts like Wait For It or The Threat. Race to awareness. Because of women's relatively short window of peak bedroom fund viability, it's imperative that men be as unaware of their slower but progressively increasing SMV for as long as possible in order for them to achieve the prime directive of female hypergamy. Realize the best genetic options and the best provisioning options she has the capacity to attract in that peak window. If men became aware of their SMV before a woman can consolidate, then their bedroom fund strategy is defeated. The mistake is to think this need for contrivances was concocted in whole as some grand sisterhood conspiracy. This just proves an ignorance of social constructs. For a social contrivance to be such, it necessitates being repeated by society without a formal conception, meaning we learn the contrivance from seeing it, internalizing it, and repeating it ourselves without forethought. The best social contrivances are inconspicuous and rarely questioned because they've been learned without having been formally taught. This is why I think encouraging men not to bother trying to understand women is in itself a social convention. Don't look at the man behind the curtain, just accept it for what it is, enjoy the show, you're better off that way. The mighty Oz has spoken. This is the threat that game represents, the feminine imperative. Widely shared objective assessment of men's SMV and how it develops is the antithesis of women's bedroom fund strategy. Women's greatest fear is that they could become the selected instead of the selectors. Bear in mind, I wrote this years before I published Preventative Medicine. This is also a few years before I formally identified women's embrace of openly, proudly flaunting their bedroom fund strategy. I can remember being soundly rebuked by women denying they adhered to anything so callous as AFBB or a schedule with regards to men. There was a certain nervous undertone that accompanied their shaming that revealed how protective they were of keeping the plan as ambiguous and secretive as possible from men in general. For every acknowledgement of the biological influences of ovulatory shift behaviors by these women, there was always an obligatory, yes, but people are people, we're above all that, it's what's on the inside that counts, not all women are like that, intended to offset the ugliness of it. Now the same women who adamantly denied that function, their opportunistic concept of love, the same women who rejected the idea of AFBB openly and triumphantly boast about it. It's become a source not only of agency, but a proud admission of perceived power on the part of women. Yeah. Okay. Back to this.
And I even said as much on that podcast where I said that. It's like, yeah, this is really bad. And me reflecting on that in that moment, the next day on that same panel, somebody that was with me on that panel the prior night was like, oh, I don't like Destiny. He's a raper. He's a sexual assaulter. They said it the next day. And I was like,
see, that's so fucked up.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's so
damn,
fucked up,
dude.
the
Like,
judgment of that is that, yeah.
Yeah, holy fuck. Like, how do you expect people to ever come over to your side? What the fuck? Like, yeah.
And maybe it's just maybe this is logic.
Destiny, you're not that. You're really not. You are just a man that did what men do. which is try to have bedroom fun. Maybe the way you did it was a bit, what's the word? Unpolished, but many men have done worse than you, Destiny. Many, many men. And what you did, again, if he was touching on a girl that wasn't interested in him, touching on a girl that clearly was rejecting his advances and kept going, that's a different story. But it's very clear that that's not what he was doing. She was clearly into it. And yes, he was drunk, and I'm sure she was drunk too. But okay, and like,
not the level of emotion here, but on some level, like, I don't understand if the first time you make a mistake, you're fucked. How do you ever grow?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you ever change and be better than that, right?
Well, it depends on the severity of the mistake, right? Like, if the quote-unquote mistake is you unalived somebody, well, I'm afraid you have to pay for that mistake, right? And clearly, if Destiny had made such a serious mistake, he would be in a metal box. You see what I'm saying? Like, go to university campus, and how many guys did exactly what Destiny did? 99.9%? Right? Like, that's not an abnormal behavior. It's not even an A-word behavior. It's not even like an M-word behavior. It's like men trying to do what men do and women trying to do what women do. So like men trying to get to have bedroom fun and women trying to have bedroom fun with Chad, right? And at the time, I'm sure the girl saw Destiny as Chad. I mean, he said he was on stream, so he's clearly got an audience. He's popular. He's got social proof, etc. Like it doesn't take like a rocket surgeon to figure this out. And that he's being apologetic about it. Like it's ridiculous. Like what? Anyway.
Like and then the second like kind of, you know, premise that comes along with that is then who the fuck do you know who's perfect? You know, so if you're gonna like blow that out a little bit, well, everyone makes mistakes, and if no one's ever forgiven, how is anyone ever, you know, acceptable from this? And like maybe you can say, I don't know. So yeah, I think it's a pretty fucked up ethos, that idea that like you can't make a mistake and apologize for it and somehow move past it.
Yeah, that's really annoying. Yeah.
Or at least pay for it and then move past it, kind of deal. So, yeah.
The lack of redemption is a big problem with. I don't want to get in a huge argument about cancel culture because we're probably on the same side of it, I imagine. But like that lack of redemption is like a really big problem, I think, where people have like it seems like my question when I think about somebody, if we think about like racism, right? My question is going to be like, is this person racist? And will they do racist things? But it seems like other people's questions like, have they ever done a racist thing ever in their entire lives? And it's like these two questions are getting to like very, very, very different things.
Okay. So, has the person ever done something like racist or whatever? Like again, this stuff is ridiculous. Like everybody, like, you know, when kids are like 11 or 12, they're gonna say stuff, right? That doesn't make them a bad person. That makes them like they don't understand like what they're saying because they're not smart enough to understand the implications of what they're saying, right? So anyway, it's like, I don't know. It's nuts to me. But, yeah.
Because like people say and do a lot of really dumb shit when they're younger, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be like that forever, but we treat them like that. And that kind of thing drives me crazy because I feel like it just pushes people like more and more into like these more radicalized spaces and everything, you know, and that bothers the fucking.
And I think it causes a bunch of fucking bullshit, right? Like in the sense of, if people don't think they can make a mistake, then they try their damned hardest to hide and pretend like they haven't made a mistake ever, right? Kind of deal. So like it puts these people presenting these personas that are just so fucking full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like imagine you told a person who said to you, you know, like I've been struggling with depression, and you know.
The problem with cancel culture in general is the inherent irony, right? Is the inherent idea that if you ever make one mistake, will destroy you. It's idiotic, right? Because obviously the people that are supporting cancel culture are making a mistake by supporting it, right? So it's like what they're effectively arguing is I'm on the right side of history, therefore I can do whatever I want, right? They're saying I'm in the dominant group, therefore I can do whatever I want. But history has shown us that certain dominant groups are, you know, not necessarily for the best. So there you go. All right. Onto the Reddit article here. Oh, you're gonna love this one, guys. I, 27 male, don't like the way my girlfriend, 23 female, reacted to a picture. My girlfriend's best friend is staying with us for the weekend, and they were talking about a guy that one of their mutual friends is seeing. And it was really freaky in bed and makes her scream and all of that. Then my girlfriend's friend pulled up a picture of the guy's that the friend sent to her. And I can't help but feel a little upset about how my girlfriend reacted. She basically was speechless, but not in the way somebody is when they're uncomfortable and don't want to give a reaction. She was like, wow, that's holy, that's not even right. Or something along those lines. Basically, she was impressed and didn't bother to make any mention of me or say anything reassuring towards me, even though I was sitting right there and she knows I can be bedroom fun insecure. I know the picture wasn't sent directly to her from this dude and is just part of girl talk, but I wouldn't react to another woman's body like that, especially not in front of her. Sometimes she shows me pictures of IG models and asks me if I think they're hotter than her or if they have a nice body, and I always give a nonchalant response out of respect. So it's very hurtful to see her react in such a way about another guy's. Also, it seems kind of bad to me that they're sharing around this guy's package amongst the friend group, but that's a different issue. Since I have a history of sometimes unreasonable bedroom fun insecurity, I want some feedback to see my feelings are justified before I bring them up to her. We've been together for a year. Okay, so the response is she doesn't respect you. How dare she talk about another man's, like, what? And in front of you? Yeah. I would be raging mad. But let's see what the comments are. 75 upvotes. I would be concerned for the other guy as well. I mean, everyone would be on your girlfriend and your friend and her friend's ass if genders were switched. The guy showing his guy friends some girls, whatever, is disgusting, and that's the same with the opposite gender. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's see this 17 upvotes. Finally, a good comment here. Probably doesn't help his insecurity that a friend showed off her FB's giant schlong to a friend right in front of a boyfriend. Exactly. It's like boyfriend destruction, right? It's very rude. Okay. Anyway, it's like nobody said the girlfriend is being highly disrespectful in her reaction. Not a single person. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, we're going to end the video there. If you're new to the channel, liking the content, hit that sub, hit all for notifications. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon with exclusive content. Patreon.com/theheliosblog. Just go there and subscribe. Again, it's patreon.com/theheliosblog. You can also drop me a donation like Tom M here. Link is in the description. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to my videos, especially if you listen to the end. You guys are wonderful. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later.